but it's the ability to bring those voters with you.
It's complicated and you don't need to worry about it.
It's been very well canvassed that as a party, we don't think the way that Darlene acted was in line with our values and principles.
I really had to think about, how am I going to change things up? How am I going to get through this? Because I don't want to fail.
It is foul and personal and violent.
Job is to make sure that we are showing New Zealanders that there is an alternative to the divisive approach of this government, that you can bring people together.
I mean, I think one of the things that any government of whatever stripe has to realise that every minister has to be a climate minister now.
When you've got a country that's got a young population but they don't get involved, you might want to have a grown-up chat about that.
We don't want a situation where government dictates the local government, but you want to make sure the system is set up so that it's easy for communities to make the decision.
I'd be really interested to see if the officials that advise that a Crown Observer was necessary or should be put in place, or whether he's made that judgment call himself.
I don't think we did, and I've said this, I don't think, because it happened quite quickly last time, I don't know that we did a good enough job of bringing the public with us.
Remember, just by having Mary Walls doesn't guarantee that mana whenua are going to be represented around the table.
Suggests that whānau with a disability and those who care and support them are somehow grifters.
Hey, good evening, everybody. How you doing, Blake?
Good, we're back again.
Yeah, a couple of weeks off for the holidays. It was really nice.
Just in time for the juicy part of the year coming into it.
Yeah. There's all sorts of things going on. Budget coming up this month. We've got local body elections on the cards in a couple of months. And the snap election will probably be called sometime around, I reckon, November, December. So it's going to be a really interesting year.
So we'll be in and out throughout the next couple of months. But we'll be here when we can.
Yeah, right. Let's jump straight into it. A couple of very, very quick housekeeping things. We've got Dr. Gary Payinda with us today. We'll bring him in just a second. We only have him for a really short time, though, because, as you can imagine, the last couple of days have been really rather hectic, and the dog will want some attention. And then after that, we've got Councillor Sarah Thomson. She's running for the Mayor of Hamilton, Kirikiriroa. Did an interesting piece on her announcement article, actually, which I want to have a talk to her about, just about media bias and how it was balanced with somebody else who's also running for mayor. But we'll have a chat to her about that at about 7:45. We have a poll running on the YouTube page at the moment. Who do you think is going to win the Australian election? It's the big one. At the moment, polls seem to think that Anthony Albanese will keep his job, but people can vote on that poll there. Anything I've missed before I bring Gary in?
Hopefully we get the Trump effect like we did in Canada.
Possibly. I guess we'll have to see. Right, let's get Gary. Kia ora, Gary.
Kia ora, Paul. Hi, Blake. How's it going?
We are going good. And how are you? It's been a hectic 24 hours. You've been everywhere on media, off on the picket line, on PSA, everywhere.
Yeah, it was a really amazing and interesting day. Whoa, lost some lighting here. Oh, give me a sec. Yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. I'm speaking to you from the road as we speak. I'm on the move. I'm in Auckland. Not literally driving right now, in case you're worried why you can see my hands. And yeah, we're not going to crash. We're parked. How was the strike day? It was highly motivating. We were expecting a low turnout, super bad weather around the country, but the skies turned sunny for us, and we were really quite lucky. Had a good turnout of doctors, midwives, sonographers, and you name it, all kinds of allied health workers, midwives and nurses, and it was wonderful. And then we marched down to the PSA rally, which went on for a couple of hours, and we had some good speeches there. And it was nice to see about 6 or 7 different groups of public service workers of all different kinds coming together. This movement that we are working towards is much more than just doctors or nurses. It's much more than just health. It goes across teachers, police, you name it. All of the essential public services are under threat, and we know that almost every day you wake up, there's more news of how much worse it's getting, whether, fair pay agreements are have been canned, or whether now Nicola Willis announced $1.1 billion more in cuts. I mean, this is going to be a defining year for New Zealand. The status quo is being demolished, and it'll be interesting to see where we end up. We could end up in a very bad austerity situation, and I fear we will. Or we can perhaps build something stronger and better out of it and end up with socially wise policies that don't degrade our public services. So yeah, it's been a highly motivating day, because I just saw hundreds and hundreds of people who are interested in trying to create a better situation than the one we had. And the number of cars that saw our banners about safe staffing and safe nurse staffing and you name it, probably 1 in 4 cars for a solid hour at each site were honking in support. So pretty awesome to see. Yeah, so it was a busy day, but a really good one as well.
Do you think the minister got the message?
No, no. I don't think that there's any room in his heart or mind to get the message. He was moved in. Okay, why would you pick Simeon Brown, whose only claim to fame in health, his only knowledge of healthcare is founding an anti-abortion club at University of Auckland, and then being spokesman for an anti-family planning organization? I mean, I didn't even know that was a thing, let alone a thing in New Zealand. I've been here 18 years and I've never heard of that. But to fight against, condoms and birth control, this is an ideologue, right? And this is the man with no health experience that's been put in charge of the health ministry. So you're asking me, do I think he will hear patients' pain and their stories and understand the kind of losses that the public system is taking in terms of nurses and doctors looking elsewhere? No, this is a man who intentionally privatized 10,000 surgical cases, which will inevitably strip surgeons and anesthetists and nurses out from the public system and into the private. So no, I don't think our message reached him, because I don't think he is capable of being reached. And I think that's why he was put in the position.
The negotiations that are going on at the moment between the Association of Salaried Medical Staff, ASMS, has there been any response to the strike from the people that they're negotiating with?
No, I mean, the only responses I've heard are just going on talking about how disappointed they are in us, how saddened they are by the impact on patients, how, the same stuff of us using patients as pawns and this and that. And of course that probably resonates with some people who are listening to it. But I think the vast majority of people realize how dire the situation in health is, how it's been cut to the bone. They may not know the details, like the fact that if you talk about real per capita funding, Health New Zealand has seen a 3% decrease in its real per capita funding in the past year. But I mean, those are like wonky numbery things that people don't realize that, but they do know what waiting lists are. And they do realize when you hear that departments average 12 to 15% understaffing for doctors, and some are up to 43, 44% unstaffed with doctors, like, you realize that the patient demand is there and these doctors have to respond to that. You can't ignore the need. So yeah, they're burning people out. They're incentivizing them to go out into private. People are leaving for Australia because with 15 years of seniority here, you would make less than a first-year new medical specialist in New South Wales. So, I mean, I don't know if people know all these things, but I think they have a feeling that there's distress within Health New Zealand, and that it has been manufactured. So my personal thing, if you guys ever say the health system is broken, please rephrase that, because it's not broken. It has been broken. it has been broken. It's an active like verb. It's an active situation. This didn't just happen accidentally, right? $18 billion went elsewhere to higher priorities, whether that's tobacco corporations that got 216 million, whether it's landlords for tax deductibility, incentives got 2.9 billion, or whether it's mistargeted tax returns that saw the richest people get the most. And if you are a pensioner, Gray Power has said that the average pensioner will take home $2.50 a week of those tax cuts. And so I did some calculations for the median income. So half of all New Zealand workers, so 50% of them will take home about $12 a week. So you've traded, with this government, they've sort of, it's been an assault on essential public services for nothing tangible gained. But it's been hella profitable for the private healthcare companies. Man, if you were a private radiology group or a private corporate health group of any kind, a private hospital, this is an impressive time to be in a profit-based field. But, it's just sad that it comes at the expense of people on waiting lists and 200,000 patients waiting to see a medical specialist in the public system for the first time. So, they've been referred up by their GP. They've got a problem. 200,000 people are waiting. No, I mean, it's just wild what's going on.
So, Gary, my question to you is you mentioned on other shows this week how Mr. Brown makes approximately $300,000 a year. He's blaming you and all your friends are going on strike because people won't get timely quality health care. Over 4,000, he crowed about 4,000 patients getting delayed because of your 24-hour strike. How does that make you feel when you hear him saying that to your profession?
Okay, so it's horrific that patients who have been waiting for so long couldn't get their surgeries and their appointments during the strike day. That I truly feel horrible for them. I can imagine how much anticipation and hope they had in that. And, I hope that they'll be rescheduled in a timely fashion. But to hear Slippery Simeon Brown blame doctors for the inadequacies of the health system and for saying we're, weaponizing patients and all this, and for being greedy and lazy and having a lot of leave and all of the things he's implying every time he goes on TV. So there's a wonderful poster that said, which would you prefer? Simeon Brown's about 34 years old. A surgeon, by the time they get done with their training, will be 32 years old. You could pay for 2 surgeons for the same price as one Simeon Brown. The actual number is 1.67. So 1.67 surgeons for one Simeon Brown. And, unanimously, I've been taking an informal poll, but unanimously people know which one they would rather have within the public system. And so Simeon's done a lot of tricky dealing. He was talking about, the percentage of doctors that voted in support of this being lower than he, would have expected, being in support of the strike, that is. So I went and I looked at how many people voted him in, and I think it was something like 56% of his electorate voted for him. And obviously lots of people didn't vote, but of the ones that voted, 56% or so, I think, voted for him. And if you look at what percentage of doctors voted to support the strike, it was something like 86%. So if we talk about a mandate, Slippery Simeon, we've really got to be a bit more honest about it. And if we talk about who benefits society more, these public hospital doctors, he's insinuating again that we're lazy and have a ton of leave and should sort of be very happy to have a 0.77% pay rise, etc. And this is a man whose base salary is something, and it's publicly available. I put it up on my Substack. So just look up drgarypayinda.substack.com, and the link from yesterday is on there. And you can see he's raking in something like $320,000 a year. He's getting $56,000 for housing. He's getting 90,000 a year for expenses. Like when you add it all, he gets a KiwiSaver that's set at no, so not a KiwiSaver, so like a pension matching thing of 20%. I mean, the dude is killing it in life, right? He has translated his 3-year degree and his position as a health expert on the care of women into quite an impressive political career, where he can be beating up on people who actually remain within the public system and are working hard to help patients. The gall of him is astonishing.
I'd call it punching down, but he's not tall enough to punch down.
Yeah.
Right. Gary, I know that you've got a really busy night ahead of you. Thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it. One really quick question for you before we go. What do you hope the public get out of yesterday's actions? What's the big overarching message that the public needs to know?
The overarching message is that the 3% cuts that this government has done to Health New Zealand were nothing compared to what is likely coming for us with the 1.1 billion or more. If there ever was a time for you to preserve your essential public services, the things that make society stronger, like, it's as simple as nurses and doctors and teachers and, infrastructure, police, defense force staff, all of these folks need support. And of course, the workers that make these things possible, the so-called back office workers, or what was Luxon's line, the bottom feeders of society, right? The caregivers, all of us need to come together, because if we don't stand together, we're going to be torn apart. And, this is an austerity government. They've given away money to the landlords, to the richest elements in society, to Philip Morris Cigarette Company. They're not saying we're going to turn that around and put that money into positive things. They're doubling down. So they're going to cut to the bone. And if we don't all come together, we're going to be diminished as a nation. That's what we're getting into. Privatization is very good if you're a corporate owner, but most of us are not corporate owners. Most of us workers, and a lot of New Zealanders are struggling to pay rent and food. So yeah, we've got to stay together. Patients, doctors, police, nurses, educators, you name it.
Wow.
Brilliant message. Thank you so much for everything that you do, Gary. It is really appreciated.
It is my pleasure. And I want to thank you guys for doing what is not commonly done in mainstream media. Do you ever watch a show where there's more than just trivial sound bites and little 5-second quips and snippets? It's these real discussions. And I hope you guys have put invitations out to Slippery, Slimy Simeon Brown and the rest, because they need to come on and actually be challenged on some of what they're doing and saying in a sort of extended format. So you guys play a huge role, and I think in the coming years, programs like this one are going to become extremely important for rallying New Zealanders and keeping us informed, frankly.
Certainly hope so. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Gary. Anytime. My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Blake. Thanks, Paul.
Have a good one.
Anytime,
Bye-bye.
Gary.
Bye-bye. Bye.
You too. See you around.
Bye. 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 Bye.
I always learn so much from Gary. Always. It's amazing. We've got Sarah in the waiting room, so we'll do the quick intro card thing and we'll bring her in, and we'll get to learn a little bit more about Kirikiriroa Hamilton, which I love, and everybody else should love as much as I do. Kia ora, Sarah. How you doing?
I'm good. Hello, Paul. Hello, Blake. Lovely to be on here with you.
Hi, Sarah. Nice to meet you. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Good.
Yeah.
I just got through the whole
Hamilton,
dinner and bedtime routine, so we're sorted.
Yeah. I know what that's like. I remember those days. I'm very glad that my kids are so old I don't have to deal with that now. Someone else's problem. So, Mayor of Hamilton.
Yes. Yep. I am standing for the Mayor of Hamilton. It's really exciting. Yeah.
What was it that drew you to make the decision to run for this particular job? I mean, it's the fastest growing city in the country,
Yep.
fourth largest population area in the country. It's part of the Golden Triangle in terms of trade for the country. Like, it's a big economic powerhouse for the area. It's a big job. What made you decide to go, yep, I want it?
I've been a councillor now for over 5 years, and I have absolutely loved the job. I'm currently chair of our strategic growth committee, and I think there's no one actually better placed to be leading the city in terms of being able to understand the challenges we face around being a fast growing city, understanding our infrastructure challenges, and actually having some really good ideas around solutions as well. I'm an incredibly hardworking councillor and I push for change all the time. And so I know that I would be really effective, and I know that we need someone who is effective over the next 3 years, and so that's why I've put my name forward.
The story that came out now, and I have to admit, this is a little bit of hearsay, and I'm kind of curious if it's true or not. There was a story that came out last week when you announced your candidacy that was written by Stephen Ward at the Waikato Times. I don't know Stephen. I don't think I've ever met Stephen, or if I have, it was in passing. But I know you and Tim. Like, I've known both of you guys for a few years now. I found that story really unbalanced, personally. My media theory background kicked in, and I did a whole bunch of analysis stuff on it, and I found it favored your opponent a lot more than it favored you, which frustrated the hell out of me. It also focused more on what you were wearing, which I found really, really frustrating. I'm kind of curious, though, whether or not that's the story that I heard was that you actually invited the press to you first, and then they called Tim up and said, "We're doing this story. What are you going to do?" Is that accurate?
Look, all I know is that I called them to say I'd be keen to announce on that Saturday, and we organised for an interview on the Wednesday. So anything else I can't really comment on. Yeah.
Fair enough. Makes sense. Did you get a lot of feedback about that news piece?
I got some positive feedback. I did get some people a little frustrated that the first thing mentioned was the pink jacket. But I guess you take it in your stride too. Like, I'm kind of like, all right, I purposely chose a pink jacket because I think that it's like a really bright and energetic color, and it reflects who I am, which is, energetic, and I want to be seen. So, yeah. But certainly, yes, I got a few frustrated messages after that came out on on the jacket.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. One of the things I really liked about that particular story, though, was that it pointed out you've got all this experience, you're very, very qualified for the job, but you also like the idea of taking things on a case-by-case basis. And I think a lot of people kind of see council as, here's just long-term planning. For you, what kind of issues crop up on a case-by-case basis within a local governance element or governance field?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that there's a lot more that councils can actually agree on, whether they're left or right, as long as they're reasonable and thoughtful people. And there's a lot more that they can agree on than people actually see. So we often in the media will see that there's disagreements and controversy because that's what's interesting. But for example, something that I'm very passionate about is ensuring we have enough industrial land. And that's something that maybe if someone looked at me to start with, they'd be like, that's not really what I would consider as something, I guess, or what they would initially think of when they think centre left. Ensuring that we actually have enough industrial land so our businesses can grow and people can move here, making sure that we've got enough wastewater capacity so that people can build houses, and actually making it easier to work with council. Right now, a big focus of mine as chair is working to see how can we make it easier for developers to work with us, because right now we cause people a lot of time wasted, a lot of money spent through, I think, pretty difficult and disjointed processes within council. So yeah, I think there is a lot that doesn't fit directly within what you would say might be left or right, whereas something which, an example of where there really has been a split was living wage, whether people would support either council employees or contractors to be on the living wage on council. Just having a think. I mean, other case-by-case things would be in terms of spending reductions, I did not support cutting library hours, cutting things like mowing, garden maintenance, repainting the roads, the road linings, cutting our customer service, cutting our community development team who do an amazing job with our community houses and community organisations, cutting our gully restoration. Those are all things that were put up to be cut. I did not support that. But I did support us looking at, cutting spending on consultants and some measured cuts to personnel costs, knowing that it was a compromise that we made, and knowing that ultimately it wasn't going to be really detrimental in terms of council's core business and services to the community. It was something that we could work with.
Blake, do you want to jump in before I completely take over?
Yeah. So Paul mentioned about the imbalance in the article that you particularly asked for. The reason why we are so unhappy about it, particularly on our platform, is you're the one that asked for the article, right? But yet Mr. McIndoe got a majority of the spread. So that's why we are so upset. So did that disappoint you at all, that they focused a lot on the right, left, and Mr. McIndoe, and not much about to his credit, you're both running, but you asked the story. Why is it not about you? Why didn't Mr. McIndoe get his own story? That what bothers me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a absolute clear picture of how it all came to be that we both were standing and announcing on the same day, but I think I think like if you look at the article that came out yesterday, did you see that one?
I did, yeah, and that one was a really interesting one of who was doing what at a committee level. I thought that was a really good way of looking at it.
Yeah, so I don't have the name recognition, and I'm unlikely to have the campaign budget to match. But I think what came out actually yesterday was quite a different story of showing I work incredibly hard as a councillor, and I'm on top of every issue, and so. I mean, there were maybe things I didn't love about that first one, but the one yesterday, I wasn't quite expecting what came with the face-to-face picture on front, and such a huge focus on the mayoral candidates rather than just the meeting purely itself. But yeah, I think where one of my big strengths are is that I do work very hard, and I actually I put up motions, I put together chairs reports which drive change and drive action, and I think you can only hope that that becomes very clear to people throughout the entirety of the mayoral campaign. recently had media about the wastewater issue, and that fully covered my chair's report and went in depth into that, the work that I'm doing to really question the decisions that council made at an operational level to shut off about about half the city in terms of being able to develop and build homes because of the wastewater constraints with no warning and with no real elected member decision before that happened. And then, a big focus on, well, where do we move from here? How do we look at, for example, opportunities for people to put in on-site temporary solutions that allow them to build before our big infrastructure is put in place. So that was a really in-depth article. So I think that I have also had some really positive media as well. I think probably one of the things I didn't love was that I was at home and I got photos taken at home because we did the interview there, and then afterwards I thought it would have been great to do a shot actually in the city rather than at home. And the media did agree to doing some new photos because I asked, well, can I have some new photos because you asked to come to my home to do an interview, and I didn't want to show where my home is, so we did shots that didn't show that, but then it also it felt like it didn't reflect that I'm standing for the city. So I was able to take new photos today, and I thought that was really good of them to do that. So I personally have a pretty positive relationship with local media, and I don't judge one story by itself too much.
Fair enough. Without giving too much your policy plan away, because obviously you don't want to do that right now. Do you hope to be more progressive than the current Mayor Paula, or do you want to stay around the same? I guess it's a bit like what they're asking of the popes that are voting at the moment. Bad comparison, I guess, but.
Did you say the Pope?
Yeah.
Actually, I have to admit, I did get a message from a friend this morning who said to me, if you are talking to any of the Hamilton mayoral candidates anytime soon, you have to ask them if voting for a Hamilton mayor should be renamed to a Tronclave.
That would be funny and would get very good headlines, but I'm not sure I would support that. I'm just turning Peppa. Oh dear. My little one had a nap and she is watching Peppa Pig because she will not sleep right now. And so I'm quickly going to turn it back on because Netflix automatically turned it off. Sorry. Hold on one moment.
The joys of live television.
It's the evening juggle, isn't it? There we go. We're good.
That raises a really interesting point for me. People have this misunderstanding about local government and what it actually does. As a candidate who has young kids who are going through and using the resources that are there, like parks and playgrounds, footpaths, open public spaces, how much does that being in that place in your life at the moment shape how you want to shape the city?
Massively. So to answer both of your questions, I think a big thing that is important to me is looking after the places that people love to live, what people do love about living in Hamilton. And I am passionate about getting things like growth right as well, not only financially, but also the way that we plan and deliver it and investing in the right infrastructure, because I plan to be here for a lot longer. Most of my family is here. I've hopefully got another 60 years, I'd say. and my kids as well. I want them to be going to school here and growing up here. And so really want it to remain a good place to live. And growth puts a lot of pressure on that. So it brings opportunity, but at the same time, it brings things like congestion. It puts pressure on our community facilities where we've got a lack of swim space. It puts, obviously, like I've talked about just now, pressure on our waters networks and wastewater system, all of that. So if we want it to stay a good place to live, we need to manage that really, really well. A specific example, I guess, of at a more granular level, having kids and how that changes my priorities. Over the long-term plan, I put up a motion to reallocate some of the playground money to actually having decent shade at all of our playgrounds. So every time we renew a playground now, there will be a minimum shade put up that covers the majority of the playground rather than a couple of piddly shade sales. And that's, from personal experience, just been a really important thing for health and safety and for being able to have kids play at any time of the day rather than getting hot and then no one can actually use our facilities and make good use of them. So that's a tiny example. Advocating for baby change tables at the swimming pools. I go to the library all the time and I'm able to provide feedback on that. So those kinds of community facilities, just having children means that I use them all the time, and I not only value them but can constantly provide valuable feedback on how we can improve them or make sure we're looking after them really well. In terms of how progressive I would be, it's a good question. I think I would continue to do what be the advocate that I and carry the same values that I have over the last 5.5 years. I support having transport choices for people, but we do need to look at how we do that in a way the community can kind of get behind, because I think we've over the last few years not done that so well. But ensuring that we still keep investing in things like choices for getting around safely, our gully restoration, and not just and looking after our community services. I think there's going to be a very big push, and then again for more cuts. And what I will be pushing hard for is progressive change in terms of actually getting better value for money. So not just cutting services, but going, how do we do things better in a more cost-effective way and actually improve our services at the same time? And a big opportunity for that is working more with neighbouring councils and other city councils. So a big part of my platform is shared services. We are working with Waikato District Council right now on a water CCO proposal, where we would be delivering water, wastewater and stormwater services together. But why should we stop there? So it could be anything from our building consent teams coming together, having the same IT platforms, having a shared payroll and HR team. There's so many opportunities. It's not an easy change to push, and that has to come from a political level ultimately. But I think that with councils actually having a third of their business go into CCOs potentially, we do need to rethink how we do things so that we can be affordable into the future while still providing good services to people.
Councils are famously restrained in how they make money. Rates are obviously the big one. There's not really much else out there in terms of an income for councils. I think it might have been you who posted up about how much money Hamilton Gardens has made since they started charging for it. What other options are you hoping, or other tools are you hoping to be able to use to help with that revenue stream that pays for these things that councils do?
That is a very good question. There's a lot that is talked about in local government around potential funding streams. The reality is that there's not really a really easy fix in terms of substantial income without central government actually sharing more of its income in some way, whether it's local GST or just providing a certain percentage of tax revenue to local government. You know, people talk about user pays. I think that's definitely got its place. You know, we're charging for more of our car parking, charging for the gardens. We're looking to have a large portion of the alcohol licensing fees, user pays. There are limits as well. You know, Auckland's looking at congestion charging. That's not really it shouldn't be seen as a revenue tool. It should be seen as a management tool, managing the amount of traffic on the network and encouraging people to use other options so that the traffic flows freely. So you can, and it, I think I've heard Wayne Brown say, you know, it's not going to replace the lost income of their fuel tax. We don't have the option of fuel tax it's been taken away. I think it would be very difficult at this point in time to talk with our community about congestion charging. You kind of, in Tauranga, they've tried that and the idea is extremely unpopular. And to some extent, in Auckland, things have just gotten so bad that people are accepting that it's needed. I think there will be the potential for tolls on some new roads where they, for example, the government wants to put another road of national significance. We're not going to be getting the money though. So, and you can look at things like alternative funding and financing. We put a lot of effort and time into looking at an infrastructure funding and financing deal. Firstly, for Peacock, where we could then transfer the debt that had been used to build the bridge and some of the roading and things in that growth sale, transfer that to a special purpose vehicle, and then that would be paid back by the residents that live there in the future through a levy. That didn't work out because of ultimately the risk to investors with that kind of proposal where it's greenfield and the people don't live there yet and you don't know how quickly it will be developed. Then we had Crown Infrastructure Partners say, hey, look, how about an infrastructure funding and financing deal for the whole of the city? We could do it for water and transport. Ultimately, it was more expensive for us and for our more importantly for the residents, than just borrowing directly from the local government authority. It was going to be a much higher interest rate, like an extra 2% on top, which adds up. So there's constantly talk about new funding and financing tools, and we always look very hard at them and look at what you can do. There's not, without more significant change, there's not a huge amount at our disposal. Auckland's looking at a bed tax. We could look at that here. It won't be a massive revenue, amount of revenue that comes in, but again, it could be another revenue stream. It's really hard. We've got 90% of the country's tax revenue goes to central government and 10% to local government, even though we build, the fundamental infrastructure that underpins like everything within our cities and communities. Yeah.
Right, Blake, last question from you, and then I'm going to hit Sarah up with some questions from the comments section if she's brave enough.
Okay. I was actually going to comment on bring up the one about money.
Okay, so this is a question that's coming from Artie Farty. Based on an idea from Bernard Hickey a few years ago about each city basically printing your own currency that's used within the city, what your thoughts are on that? Hamel bucks.
I had... Okay, I follow Bernard Hickey a bit, but I hadn't heard that one. That is an interesting idea. I think, though, my understanding is, New Zealand has a sovereign monetary system, and as a country, we could print money, and we essentially do that when we run operating deficits as a country, and we definitely did that over COVID. The trick is, though, you don't want to push up inflation, and so where the money goes has to be carefully thought about, and how much, to ensure that it goes into things where you're not going to put pressure on resources. It always has to be matched with real resource. But that's that's an interest of mine, modern monetary theory, but it's something, when it comes to local council, we are in a very different position where we simply just have to balance our budgets.
And then my comment was going to, my question was going to be, for the people that may be watching now or later on demand, or watching from Hamilton, what do you want to hear from them?
From people watching, I think it's always really good to hear about what people care about in the city. That's what we're here for. We're, as elected members, we're here to take what we hear from within the community, and then be great advocates within the council. So if anyone's got ideas or issues, or just wants a pothole fixed, well, you should use Antenno for that, really. But happy to hear from you.
Oh dear. Have we got anything else interesting for?
Well, I have a question here from Sam from It's in the Ballot. And he would like to know whether or not you'll be participating in It's in the Ballot when they come and do the Hamilton City shows a little bit later on in the year for the elections.
Hello, Sam. Thank you for asking. Send me an email, send me the details. I'll be making it to as much stuff as I can, and particularly, I'm a big supporter of getting people to turn out to vote. What's really, slight tangent, but what's really exciting is that we had the majority of councillors, not everyone, support some additional funding for the election, so that we can have ballot boxes outside of places like supermarkets and malls, because letterboxes are disappearing and post is so slow. We need to make it accessible. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that impacts on voter turnout this time around.
All right, we'll be doing our best.
Send me the details.
Get out there and vote.
We'll be doing our best to encourage people.
Final question for you, and this is probably going to be a really tough one, to be honest. What is your ultimate vision for the future of Hamilton?
Okay. Ultimate vision, it's a place where people love to live, and that means it's a place where we look after what we have really well. I want it to be a clean, beautiful, well-maintained city which everyone can feel really proud of. It's a city where we have a diverse and healthy local economy, where the council's not in the way of people doing good things, because we've put the infrastructure in place that we need. And it's a place where people really love to live, because we've looked after what makes Hamilton special. Everything from river walkways and our green spaces, playgrounds and gullies are great places for people to enjoy.
Perfect. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us, Sarah.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll flick you a message next time I'm in town, because I'd love to have a catch up about a few other things while I'm there, like how I get a statue in Garden Place. I'm sure one of them must owe me a statue.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Thanks,
Awesome.
Paul, and
Thank you,
thanks,
Sarah.
Blake, and thanks to everyone who's been watching. Cheers.
Brilliant.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
See, I do love Hamilton. I spent so long there. It is absolutely a wonderful place. And I think people often forget that if they don't go there, often enough. Like it's easy enough to forget just the amazing things that are there. Did you know Hamilton was the first place in the country to get the internet?
Oh, I did actually.
Yeah.
But,
first place in the country to roast its own coffee beans. There's a lot going for Hamilton. Coffee and internet. I mean, that's literally what the 21st century is coffee and internet these days.
Because it's related to this conversation, I'm actually going to put this piece of housekeeping here. Sam actually features in the newsletter this week.
Very briefly.
Had the chance to read it today. And
I've sent him through a copy, I think.
Yeah.
But if people want to sign up for the Substack newsletter, that's linked in the bio. There's actually a whole bunch of interesting stuff about local government that we're going to be doing through that. It is one of those things that I want more people involved in. I want more people getting out there and voting and getting excited about it. And it's one of those things that I'm very determined to drive. But last week's newsletter got seen by about 3,000 people, including Lynn of Tower, Jeanette McDonald, flicked me a quick message saying that she'd seen it and enjoyed it, which is really cool. But this week's newsletter is about how to go and spot red flags in local body candidates. And it actually uses somebody who commented on last week's newsletter saying, well, this is nonsense. It'll be a really interesting one. That's available for paid subscribers now, and it will go out for free on Sunday for everybody else. So, it's been very interesting.
And if you want to pay for it, you can get it 10 o'clock every Friday.
10 o'clock every Friday morning. But that's in the bio for people. Which reminds me, there's a couple of people I need to message about their subscriptions, but I will get on to that. That's a later problem. Should we watch the news?
Yeah, and then I've got something to share after that about next week.
Cool. Brilliant. I've been playing with the news a little bit. My partner and I last night actually sat up really late working out what we could do to zhuzh it up and make it feel more news-like. So let's see if that works. We'll give this a go. Storm ravaged parts of the country, the highest priority for someone who isn't the Prime Minister. Human rights deemed an optional extra by privileged white people. Human space filler thinks he works too hard. And why inflation is rising before the government tells us who they intend to hurt with this year's budget. All that and more in this week's The News. Hello there, kia ora, I'm Paul, and I really hope this weekend Australians don't make the same mistake we did by voting in a bald, ultra-conservative, right-wing politician. Parts of Canterbury and Wellington are in clean-up mode this weekend after an unprecedented weather event which saw record levels of flooding, houses evacuated and a state of emergency declared. This storm also saw power cuts in the area, red wind warnings in Wellington, all flights out of the capital cancelled and record numbers of emergency services called out. While the Prime Minister, seen here learning that there is a landmass south of the North Island, spent the weather event promoting a ban on voting for prisoners, his visit to a rest home and making it easier for farmers to pollute, while saying nothing about the storm. While NIWA has pointed out that the severity of the weather event was heightened by man-made climate change, leading to more water in the area and higher atmospheric pressure, which the Deputy Prime Minister has deemed as woke, so won't be worrying about the impacted areas, and ACT MP Mark Cameron has said there's no reason for banks to tell us what their climate disclosures are so that they can keep services open for our biggest polluters. The Ministry of Health has announced a decrease in the number of planned ICU beds for the currently under construction downgraded Dunedin Hospital. The updated plan has 10 fewer beds than was originally signed off as part of the government's plans to downsize the initial build. Said Simeon Brown, Minister of Health, seen here learning McDonald's Happy Meals come with a toy. It's not like that many people live in that part of the country anyway. They'll never notice. Chief Human Rights Commissioner Stephen Rainbow, seen here showing how much he cares if he feeds dangerous rhetoric to white nationalist extremists about Muslim communities, is again under fire for comments he made disparaging the Muslim community. Notes from a February meeting have revealed that he claimed that they are a threat to Jewish communities, despite denying that he used that term when the reports initially came out last month. When asked for comment, the Prime Minister said, "Human rights? Not on my watch." The government is rolling out plans to disenfranchise people in prisons, removing their right to vote. Currently, anyone serving more than 3 years is barred from voting, while those serving under 3 years can vote for the ward or electorates that they resided in before incarceration. With plans to increase prison capacity and demands for the judiciary to use prison more as a punishment, with a police force that has an admitted racial bias against Māori and a prison system where Māori are currently overrepresented, the government has denied these changes will unfairly impact Māori, while the High Court has ruled that stopping prisoners who would be released during the tenure of the winners of the elections in question from voting is a breach of their rights, and forcing a blanket ban on voting which doesn't take on board the process of rehabilitation, time spent in prison, the unfairness of someone being able to vote or refuse a vote depending on if they have home detention or not, is a breach of human rights. The Prime Minister has said he just doesn't care about human rights, saying, "Human rights? Not on my watch." But at least this way we can take credit for having stopped former ACT Party President Tim Jago from voting. Finance Minister Nicola Willis has announced the decommissioning of the inter-islander Aratiri later this year, just in time for the replacement ferry ordered by Labour last term to not be delivered because it was cancelled to pay for tax cuts for landlords. The only rail-enabled inter-islander ferry being out of commission means a significant delay will be expected over the next few years for cargo movements between the islands. Said the Finance Minister, "It's not like that many people live in that part of the country anyway. They'll never notice." Education Minister Erica Stanford, seen here showing off her MAGA hat to then US Ambassador Scott Brown in 2018, has announced that from 2027 all children in schools will be taught financial literacy in compulsory classes, set apart from the current financial literacy models and maths courses. Labour's education spokesperson Willow Jean Prime has come out in support, saying, "Of course we support this. Not only will it mean school kids are more qualified with budgets than the English Lit grad who currently has the finance portfolio, this was our policy in 2023, so it's good to see it being adopted." Iwi bosses have accused New Zealand First an act of scaremongering and race baiting because they're scaremongering and race baiting, more so than usual, around plans for a joint management oversight organisation that reports back to Auckland Council about the Waitakere Ranges. The plan, required under a 2008 law, was called co-governance by the two parties, leading to the usual round of idiots who think woke is an insult, crying about something they clearly don't understand. Said Mining Minister Shane Jones, seen here showing you how many meals you have to buy him before he'll change laws to let you achieve what you want. Well, of course we did that. How else can we mobilise enough people to let us strip the area of natural assets and make it think it was their idea? Statistics New Zealand has been forced to amend a recent inflation figure announcement after an issue with their formula that sets the levels based on the Consumer Price Index. It seems Stats NZ forgot to incorporate the increased costs of car registration, and the current inflation rate is actually 2.6%, not the reported 2.5%, marking one of the only times in recorded history where 0.1% of a size difference meant people were more screwed than they believed. The Minister for Regulation in charge of the ministry that this week once again topped the list of highest paid civil servant roles, David Seymour, seen here with a recently disenfranchised voter, has claimed he wants to slash what he calls bloated ministerial lineups, saying there are simply too many portfolios that are unnecessary and meaningless, calling the current setup a big complicated bureaucratic beast. And he should know his Ministry of Regulation is a perfect example of this. The Associate Minister of Education, Finance, Health and Justice says he would like to include all Associate Minister positions except Finance, Child Poverty Reduction, Hospitality, Racing, Auckland, the South Island and Space. Said a spokesperson for the Ministry of Space, Seymour is clearly an expert on the topic. He has so much of it between his ears after all, but after spending so much time on the mining ship Red Dwarf, we're surprised he feels this way about space. Health New Zealand has confirmed that it will cut a third of all IT jobs in an effort to keep paying for tax cuts for landlords and tobacco companies. The current infrastructure for the health sector is heavily siloed and runs on a range of archaic systems, making it more susceptible to foreign interference and bad faith actors willing to exploit the system's weaknesses. Said Minister of Health Simeon Brown, seen here with his boss wondering why there are poor people within a 500 metre radius of their location, "We just wanted to make sure that if the Deputy Prime Minister needed to access a file, he wouldn't feel too much pressure because of the age of the system." The Waitangi Tribunal has agreed to an emergency hearing over the ACT Party's Regulatory Standards Bill, brought to the tribunal by the group behind last year's record-shattering Hikoi mō te tiriti. Over 12,000 people have registered as part of the claimant group, concerned that the bill will breach the founding document and cause significant prejudice to Māori. Said Māori Development Minister Tama Pōtaka, seen here holding a list of what his coalition have done for Māori. "Oh, bugger! We'll need to rush this in front of the House now. It's how we stop the tribunal ruling on other legislation we've done that hold Māori back in the past, since they can't rule on anything that's before the House." Mayors from around the country have asked themselves, what the fuck? At Associate Education Minister David Seymour's latest suggestions that they be the ones to fight truancy in schools. After the government removed well-being considerations from the Local Government Act, Seymour this week asked mayors to step up and help, a move rejected by local authorities as being well outside the remit of local government. Said Christchurch Mayor Phil Major, seen here showing how much of a shit he doesn't give about Seymour's suggestion, "We want to see our students attend schools and get the best possible outcomes, but we don't have the resources or time to do a job that the minister stopped funding. Maybe if he wants to see results, he should stop visiting schools, then attendance might increase." And finally, one of the current iterations of New Zealand Loyal, which last year was taken over by alt-right media personality and big fan of everything Vlad is doing in Russia, Calvin Alp, has been officially debanked. ASB, Kiwibank, NBS, Co-op and SBS have all declined applications for the party to open accounts under rules which prohibit the opening of accounts linked to politicians or political groups that may have been exposed to political interference, susceptible to money laundering or funding terrorism. After thousands went missing from the Liz gun-controlled accounts of New Zealand Loyal last year, and after Alp himself attended a Russian state event for pro-Russian influencers pushing disinformation worldwide, after the trial that he had for allegedly owning and distributing objectionable video material from the Christchurch massacre, it seems banks just can't find a reason to believe in the legitimacy of those involved in this undertaking. And that is this week's The News. How could I press the right button? I was snacking at the same time. So yeah, that's this week's The News. What do you think? What do you think of the new opening?
Yeah. That looked better than the straight intro. Yeah, I liked it actually.
Cool. Very cool. I'll keep playing around with it. Should be lots of fun. So you had an announcement for next week. Am I retiring?
No. So everyone's been asking if we can do some stuff on the tariffs. So I made a call to a certain university last week, and our good friend Robert Patman will be right on hand to discuss all things tariffs.
Okay, that's a good choice. I love Robert. He is so informative and so brilliant to talk to. Just as long as we don't talk religion, it'll be fun, because he's not an expert on it. Neither am I.
He said I can joke about this. He said he doesn't want to talk about popes.
No, that's fair. I wouldn't want to talk about popes either, personally. Already mentioned the Pope far too many times in this one episode.
She said tariffs are much better.
Tariffs are probably easier to understand. Is the way to put it.
Yeah.
Right. Anything else before we sign off?
And I'm also working on another one that may involve something to do with COVID. So there's a teaser.
COVID.
So there's a teaser for you.
Yeah. I'm constantly working on these things. It's a good thing. Now, before we go, do you know what Sunday is?
You put me on the spot and I can't remember.
I know. It's Star Wars Day.
Oh, yes, of course.
It's my favorite not holiday of the year. So I'm going to wish everybody a very happy Star Wars Day as we wrap up.
Are we getting a traditional Star Wars clip?
Well, I'm a little concerned about getting involved in an actual Star Wars anything, because David Seymour will come in and say it's a waste of time. So just not worth it. It's all right. I might do something with Star Wars. I might actually do a little bit of a teaser for the other show that I'm working on at the moment. Let's see about that. See if I've got the time to line it up over the weekend. But yeah, that'll be, I think that's us for the night.
There'll be another episode next week, as I just said. So we'll see you then.
Yeah. May the force be with you, everyone. Have a good one.